The sirens are wailing. The drama is mounting. The facts are getting thrown under the bus. Up next, a look at emergency medicine on Science Goes to the Movies. Welcome to Science Goes to the Movies, a look at the stories of science and how they change our culture. I'm Faith Saley, and today we're going to talk about the facts and fictions of emergency medicine with Dr. Billy Goldberg of NYU Bellevue Hospital. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm great, and I'm so excited. I know, I have so many
questions. You have that look.
I have so many. Everybody has so many questions for you.
That's one of the benefits of being an ER doctor. People, you're fun at a party.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. If you were like, oh, I do colonoscopies, people don't want that many details, right?
You can't do a colonoscopy at a party, but I guess dermatologists probably get a lot of business at a party also.
Yeah.
People are showing their rashes and stuff.
Dr. Kildare was TV's first medical drama. Ben Casey, Marcus Welby, and MASH followed, and in 1972, the show Emergency was the first medical drama to feature paramedics and emergency room staff. Chicago Med, Grey's Anatomy, and ER have followed the tradition, captivating audiences with real or pretty kind of close to real medical dramas. So, Billy, is it safe to say that emergency medicine, as portrayed in film and TV, has grown closer to facts since the days of Marcus Welby and Emergency?
Emergency medicine probably has. Medicine has probably gone farther away from it because, and I'm a TV person. I love watching TV. It's hard for me to watch the medical stuff, but for emergency medicine, I think the show ER kind of taught people about what ER doctors do. But so much of television is glamorized. Like, I cringe. Grey's Anatomy, I can't watch.
Why?
It's so unreal. It's so fake.
Name the three top ways that it's so fake.
I mean, every day.
All doctors are gorgeous. Can we start there?
That is so true.
Okay.
You can't imagine how much sex we have, and how it's unbelievable. It's every day. No, it's. The procedures they do are ridiculous. The amount of...
The procedures are ridiculous because they simply aren't done that way in the real world? Or you're not presented with these outre
You don't have
problems?
4 million complex cases in one day, every day.
Okay.
And also, it's just everything is glamorized. When ER was filming, I was a resident. When it was just starting, I was a resident in LA. And they would come by and ask us we met the writers, the actors would follow us around, and they would ask us for ideas. And you would see an idea that you saw or that you told them about on the show, and then you would see it just get exploded. So I took care of a kid who I was rotating through the children's hospital, and the paramedics brought him in because he was playing with a hanger, and it got caught in the back of his throat. And I told them the story, and in real life, basically we looked at him. He was fine. The paramedics had done the right thing. They cut the hanger off. It was just the barb hanging out. They brought him in. He was breathing. We were very cautious not to get him anxious, and then we did an x-ray. We saw it was very superficial, and we reached in and we pulled it out. And
denouement.
Right. Done. Perfect.
So they took this colonel and did what on the show?
Oh, on the show, he starts to bleed, and they do a tracheostomy, and they're doing surgery in the ER. These ER doctors who are, supposed to be trained in emergency medicine are doing 4 million procedures, and at the end of the day, they're having sex in the back room.
Is there anything else about Grey's Anatomy in particular that drives you crazy?
Sometimes the language. As a doctor, you watch it and they do things wrong. They do CPR wrong, or they do a procedure wrong, or they put their gloves on wrong. So you just catch all these things. I think shows that go for a while, you see the actors catch up to that. They get better. I was a medical advisor on a TV show that was briefly on, and one of the tough things to do was to teach these people the basic things that we do every day: putting on a pair of gloves,
washing hands,
washing your hands. How to stand and hold yourself, how to hold an instrument.
Do you say stat all the time?
At home.
To your kids?
I have 3 kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Go to bed, stat.
And just one other.
And my wife calls me doctor.
Okay, good. And do you use triage as a verb, as I am wont to do?
You just triage everything?
Yeah, it's just such a handy verb.
I triage dinner. I triage.
Yeah.
Eat that first. Yeah, I mean, no, I don't.
So here's something I've always wanted to know. In the movies or TV, when someone gets shot. You know, the first thing on everybody's mind is get the bullet out, get the bullet out. And then usually on screen, if the bullet is out, the person survives.
It's instantly like that.
Yeah, right? But the character is still left with a hole in him or her, right?
So it's not, the bullet doesn't matter. There are people walking around all the time with bullets in them. We do not take the bullet out. Say, look.
What?
Learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. So, you don't take the bullet out?
Well, in most cases, you'll do more damage removing a bullet. First of all, I don't take bullets out because I'm an ER doctor. Ultimately, they'll go to surgery. Sometimes people will show up years later and the bullet has come to the surface, and we'll sometimes do a tiny little procedure and cut down on it and take it out. But the damage is done when the bullet goes in. Most of the time, we just leave it alone. There are a couple of kind of exceptions to that rule. If it's near a major vessel, so one of your major blood vessels, where it could migrate a little bit and move and injure that, you'll take it out. Sometimes in the brain, depending on where it is, they'll need to operate just because they don't want any extra damage. And if a bullet is in a joint, it can leach lead into the joint, and that can be a problem. It can kind of get in your blood system. But otherwise, I mean, we'll have people show up because for some, weird reason, people get shot multiple times over the course of their life.
Oh, the same person?
It might be a behavioral thing.
Interesting. Okay.
But they'll come in and we'll do an X-ray and you'll see the old bullets in there.
Oh my gosh. So you see this? You sometimes see the same people over and over.
We see
like,
people,
oh, he got shot again.
Yeah. Well, we have a term for people that we see often. They're frequent flyers.
All right. So if we find ourselves with an unwelcome foreign object protruding out of our bodies, should we not try to remove the knife or the bullet or the the Lego piece that impales my husband's foot, or do we leave it in?
The Lego piece you can take out, but in general we leave things alone, right? Until we get you somewhere where we know where it is. So we try and find out where it is. We'll do our CAT scan or our X-ray or an ultrasound, depending on what we have available, to find out where it is, and then we either will take it out, like my example of the hanger. We knew it was superficial. We knew it wasn't near any blood vessels. We just took it out. Boom, done. If it's deeper, then people will need to go to surgery often, and you carefully dissect it and remove it. But you have to resist that instinct to just yank it out. Sometimes we will.
On TV and in movies, people get shot and then they wrap up the bloody wound in a bloody rag and they jump up and down and run around and lift things and continue to save the day. Or their massive shoulder wound only affects their shoulder. Okay, so, when I stub my toe or get my feelings hurt, I kind of have to sit down and work it out. So my question is, does traumatic pain affect the rest of the body?
Do you come to the ER when you have your feelings hurt?
I should, right?
You wouldn't be surprised. Feelings hurt. That's on the triage
Frequent
diagnosis.
flyer, yeah.
Well, this whole wrapping up a wound, that's an important lesson for people, and I try and teach it all the time. Almost all bleeding will stop with direct pressure. So whatever you have, preferably it's a clean rag, but you should just, anytime you're bleeding, if you put pressure on it directly, most bleeding will stop with pressure. And depending on, often it looks enormous and it's really not going to affect you, so you can get up and run around. Also, what happens when you injure yourself is you have an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So your body activates your nervous system and you have this rush of adrenaline. And so, yeah, maybe you
So is that pretty realistic in movies where we see the hero?
There's nothing realistic about movies. Come on.
Well, is it somewhat realistic in movies where we see a hero or a villain get a serious injury, but he or she keeps going? Can we chalk that up to pure evil or pure heroism and adrenaline?
It's either adrenaline, evil, or heroism, yeah.
Okay.
One of the three.
Here's another ER trope I would love for you to shed light on. In movies and TV, we see people get shot and they don't want to go to the emergency room because they say I don't want a doctor to report that I've gotten shot. Is that true? Do ER doctors have to report certain kind of wounds to authorities?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Gunshot wounds, stab wounds. We're required by law to report those.
Gunshot wounds and stab wounds.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things. We're supposed to report burns. We're supposed to report dog bites. We're supposed to report sexually transmitted diseases. For a lot of those things, there's processes by which the lab will report them. But for injuries that could be involved in criminal activity, that's kind of and every state has its different laws on that.
And you probably have
but
different
there was
laws.
an issue in New York where something wasn't reported. There was a high high-profile person who was brought in after a gunshot wound and it wasn't reported.
And something didn't get reported
and
because
the doctor
this person was...
they wanted to get the doctor in a lot of trouble over it. And
do you also have different laws that apply to taking care of children? If a child comes in with...
for children it's a lot different because there's all these child protective laws where you have to report. And in order to get licensed in New York, we have to do a child abuse course where you learn to recognize child abuse. So we're very careful about protecting children.
All right,
I just got a cringe thinking about it.
Yeah.
Kind of the worst case I've ever seen was a child abuse case.
Oh, of course. Let's look at other great dramatic fictional moments in ER that are not always factual. Because facts matter a lot, particularly in emergency medicine. A University of Pittsburgh study is one of several papers that compare the portrayal of emergency medicine on TV with the actual data from ERs across the country. Now, these studies are significant because, as the Pittsburgh study states, Americans obtain health-related information from mass media more than any other source other than their doctors. All right, so let's start with statistics. On TV, 89% of coma victims come out of their comas and return to normal life functions. Is this something that you see in reality?
You know, it's for coma, that's a really tricky one to talk about because it's such a spectrum. And coma, it comes from the Greek word to sleep. It's like a deep sleep, really. So it's where you don't respond to like the painful stimuli. So I see coma every day in the ER. I mean, people who come in so intoxicated, technically they're in a coma, a state of coma. So we use
if you
the
pass
term,
out from drinking, that's a coma.
If you're I mean, we see people. This isn't just you get drunk, you go home, fall asleep on the couch. This is people who drink so much that they're almost not breathing, and they're brought to us. There's a lot of drug use that we see. That there are these sedative drugs that people take. Some of these club drugs, GHB, you may have heard of. Other mixed intoxicants. We see people who take a lot of things, and they're comatose. And then there's head injuries where people are initially comatose. So it's such a wide spectrum. So in the people who are in like these deep, comas from a bad brain injury, no, I mean, there are no good statistics on that, but it's not as...
They probably won't go back to normal
No, you're not talking about 85% of people. Cardiac arrest is one of those things that on TV, everybody is getting shocked and just like, leaving the hospital or getting their chest cracked and leaving the hospital. And the numbers on cardiac arrest are really low. I mean, somewhere in the range of 6 to 9% of people who have cardiac arrest outside of the hospital live to hospital discharge.
Right. That is not seen at all on this.
No.
Because first of all, we see...
It's TV. Don't tell anyone.
We see people getting CPR all the time. Yeah. And on screen, when we see somebody getting CPR, they almost always survive. And I know cardiopulmonary resuscitation is awesome and everything, but how effective is it?
So CPR is a bridge to something else. So people don't live from the CPR. They're usually in an abnormal rhythm and they need to get shocked out of that. Or they're having a heart attack and they need to get to the hospital so that they can get to the catheterization lab so somebody can open up the blood vessel that's feeding oxygen to the heart. So the CPR itself is not saving them. It's really
keeping them alive.
It's keeping them alive until you can shock them out of the rhythm. There's a neat study in casinos where they're watching you, and you can imagine people who have cardiac arrests in casinos because they're not that healthy and they're get stressed, and they see them right away. They taught the people in the casinos to do good CPR and to get the defibrillator, the automatic defibrillator people, and people did really well. Somewhere in the range of 50 to 75% of those people survived from a certain rhythm, if they had the shockable rhythm. But there are other times when you die and you're dead.
Is there, you said good CPR, is there bad CPR?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what not to do.
This is tricky because what not to do, we want people to do CPR.
Tell us what to do.
CPR, if somebody is not breathing and we don't even check for a pulse. If you believe that they're not responsive, the calling for help is the first thing to do. But CPR needs to be fast and deep is the new thing. You don't need to breathe for people now. We have hands-on only CPR, and it's at a rate of about 100 to 120 a minute. And you're supposed to go down about 2 inches.
Isn't that the rate of, I've heard of the song Staying Alive?
Yeah. But nobody knows Staying Alive anymore.
I'm old. It's okay.
I thought you were going to get up and dance. I was going to say one of these or something.
Okay, so people who are squeamish about mouth to mouth, don't worry about that.
You don't have to do it.
So how many thrusts do you do?
It's basically 100 in a minute. So 100 times a minute. So things staying alive.
So you would do 100 and then take a break? 'Cause
No,
that's
you
like
don't take a
lot
break.
of-
You're supposed to keep doing it. That's
Well,
why
I mean,
we
you're right
switch
to
out.
shake out your arms.
You get really. I actually had one of my best saves of all time. Was a couple of years ago. It was a guy. We did CPR on him for 45 minutes, and he came and he went. He came and he went, and I actually found out that he ultimately was having a heart attack, and we brought him back, and he went to get the procedure, the catheterization, and I stopped by the next day in the ICU to see him because I heard he was sitting up and doing well. Or 2 days later, I went there, and he didn't remember anything, and he just told me, I just woke up, and I didn't remember things, and my chest was sore. I said, well, the next day my arms were sore.
Yeah.
You know, it's a workout.
Wait, you in an emergency room did CPR for 45 minutes straight?
It was, yeah, I mean, we
But
brought
you're
him
in a hospital, can't you? Like, isn't there a step? I thought CPR was what we do to get somebody to a hospital or to a place where someone
But
can
then
do
as
better
we're
than that.
doing all the stuff that we need to do to try and figure out why their heart stopped and what we can do, we continue, it becomes this bridge to what ultimately happens, either them not making it or the next step. In this case, we brought him back and he went and got the procedure done. But what CPR does, it basically keeps his blood flowing to his brain, essentially, and perfuses the rest of his body as we try and figure it out.
And it's amazing that.
And that's very unrealistic. That's one example from my 25-year career. I mean, I've had saves, but that was the most dramatic.
Is that ER doctor parlance, saves?
Yeah. I mean, we have our things. That was a real save.
What do you call when you don't save somebody? Is it a loss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and they affect you in different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough, but we see it a lot. So you kind of
You have to celebrate your save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you definitely celebrate. You need one every once in a while.
Has our treatment of heart attacks in real life changed dramatically in the past 30 years or so?
It's definitely improved the treatment of heart attacks themselves, but for cardiac arrest, the original studies that showed how we resuscitate people from cardiac arrest, which I believe were done in the 60s, I'm not exactly sure, we haven't changed all that much what we do outside of the hospital.
Because of CPR, right?
It's really access to devices. So, the defibrillator
Right.
that you see, there's manual defibrillators that we use in the hospital. And now there are these, what we call AEDs, which are automated external defibrillators, which anyone can put the pads on. So you'll see in your gym, there's a thing that says AED.
Yeah.
Or in the airport they have them, and casinos I mentioned. But these things are available, and you just put them on and
in the movies.
Here we go.
I know, but that's why
Well,
you're
the
here.
science goes
That's
to
why
the
you're
movies.
Here. Ladies never have heart attacks. That's not ladylike, right?
Oh, it's not ladylike at all.
Talk to me about.
I'm going to get
real
myself
life.
in trouble and say
Yeah.
something wrong.
How many?
I'm not even allowed to say ladies, am I?
You have my permission. We're being ironic.
Women-
Do women have heart attacks, and how often?
They do. We know that women who present with heart attacks present differently, so the classic symptoms are less common in
So
women.
women do not have these big chest-grabbing moments.
So people in general don't have there's a sign, it's called Levine's sign, that fist over the heart, like I am having chest pressure that you have. But it's not always that way. There's a lot of subtle presentations, and we just know it's a little more subtle in women.
Almost invariably,
Yeah.
it's more subtle in women.
I mean, they'll present sometimes with the classic. I had a guy the other night when I was working, and I heard the paramedics telling the story to the nurse, and then I walked over and I looked at him, and he was sweaty. And for us, sweating with chest pain is a little bit of a bad sign, and I knew right away what was going on. That was actually a good save.
Congratulations. You said the Levine sign. Is that some Dr. Levine is the one who?
Of course, yeah. I'm guessing so. A lot of these things are named after people, but I'm assuming it was Dr. Levine.
Is there a Goldberg move in the ER?
I want a Goldberg.
What's it going to be?
Well, I don't know. I got to figure that out.
Okay.
How great would that be?
Right. It was such a good save. I pulled a Goldberg.
That's my mic drop moment. Then I'm done.
Right.
I retire.
I don't think it's a mic drop. It's like a used glove drop.
A forcep drop.
Okay, good. Okay, so what should I do if I'm having a heart attack? Besides get to you?
Call 911. You
Okay.
go to the hospital. If you're concerned that you're having symptoms, that are consistent with a heart attack. If you're having chest pressure or sweatiness, often when you exercise, right? When you exercise, your heart is working harder. It's demanding more oxygen. If there's a blockage in one of those arteries, then your heart is kind of, that chest pain is like your heart screaming for more, like, feed me. That's when you come to see us.
All right. I know you'll remember this. In Pulp Fiction, when John Travolta takes that long needle and just plunges it into Uma Thurman's chest, why would he do that to poor Uma Thurman?
In the movie, what they were doing is he was giving her a shot of adrenaline, epinephrine, which is a drug that we use for different things. We use it in cardiac arrest. We use it for allergic reactions. We use it sometimes for really bad asthma, but we don't inject it in the heart. We inject it in the muscle, and sometimes we give it IV. That was a heroin overdose, and we have a very simple medication to reverse that, which we actually give out now. There's programs to give it out to drug users, and it's called Narcan or naloxone, and it reverses the effects of opiate medications, of narcotics. And that would have been much easier to do and much less dramatic.
Are TV and film kind of your nemesis in a way?
Are you kidding? I love TV. I watch TV all the time. There are shows that ER did great things for emergency medicine. It showed good medicine. It was a drama, but I think people learned a little bit about our specialty. One of the favorite shows of doctors is actually Scrubs. Doctors really like Scrubs. That's
because of the gallows humor?
It has a little bit of dark humor. It shows the hospital in the hospital's a weird place. And there's a lot of different people, and there's kind of the medical stuff, the dramatic medical stuff is a small part of what we do.
Huh.
But I think JD, the character in Scrubs, is a resident, and he has a lot of self-doubt, and he's trying to navigate this, and you see a lot of it. So it was absurd, but sometimes the hospital can be a kind of absurd place.
Is being an ER doctor mostly, I don't want to say boring, but your days and nights, are they hardly as dramatic as what we see on TV?
I mean, there are days that are pure drama, and you have crazy days, and there are days where you see back pain and sore throats and colds, and you don't see a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, you're usually busy and moving depending on where you work most of the day, so it's nonstop, but it's not, gunshots and explosions and...
With a great soundtrack.
Yeah, and beautiful people. I gotta work there.
When we see ER doctors on screen, we rarely get to see their emotional lives. I mean, except the love lives and sex lives on Grey's Anatomy, right? But these shows are purposefully full of dramatic moments. So you treat this person and you move on. What is the emotional life of an ER doctor like? Are you thinking about someone that you lost 5 years ago occasionally? Are you thinking about last week's patient? How's that kid feeling now?
It's such a tricky question because it's different every day. I think we develop mechanisms that we can deal with the stress of it. Sometimes that's dark humor. Sometimes that's the way our work lives are set up is we work really hard when we're there, and then we're done. So you'll see that ER doctors do a lot of things outside of the hospital to clear their minds. There are definitely cases that affect you and affect you for a long time. I mean, I have cases that I'll never forget. This one child abuse case, I'll never forget this kid. I mean, the sweetest kid. And there are times that I've made, mistakes in the hospital because it's inherent in human behavior that you make mistakes. We're not perfect. And they haunt me a little bit. And the good moments kind of, you try and figure out how to survive it all. But it's, I know a lot. So with my kids, it's interesting because, I always go to the worst place, and then I try and back off of that. So the information, and I have to figure out what I'm going to keep from my wife and what I'm going to tell her, and it's a balance. But I love what I do. It's a privilege to be able to do it.
What does the public need to know about the ER?
So I do a radio show on Sirius XM. It's called Dr. Radio is the channel, and I think a lot of what I like to do is to demystify medicine, to say things like, I think we need to reset our expectations of what's realistic, because it's kind of falsely set by TV. The doctor, it's okay not to know what's going on. There aren't perfect answers for everything. I think we have to understand and have a better dialogue between doctor and patient. So I think there's a lot to learn.
Do you think that it's okay for the average person to be learning about medicine from watching TV and movies?
It depends what they're seeing. You know, I think it should be a
If
little...
you could prescribe a show for people to see, what would it be? Or a movie? Do you have a favorite doctor from Hollywood?
My favorite Hollywood doctor? No, I don't. Oh my God, I need to have a show, and then I can be my own favorite Hollywood doctor.
What would your favorite Hollywood doctor be?
I shot a show briefly that none of you have seen, but we would take a topic and we would kind of describe it in a fun way. I think medicine needs to be accessible to people. I think you have to deliver it in a way that's a little kind of lighter so that people want to see it and don't get turned off. Like, I was not a basic science guy. I like medicine. I like the art of medicine. I think you can learn a lot from a lot of these different shows if you can, you know, kind of pick the little facts. I think you and I should basically be on after every medical show, and then we'll talk about it.
I'm there. And then
let's put our word out to all networks.
We're willing. And then I think that the Goldberg move could just be like a massive fist pump in the air after a great save.
There you go.
I hope the next time I am impaled by a foreign object that I end up in your care, Dr. Billy.
Please don't get impaled.
I'm not planning on it, but that's what I hope. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for. I feel like you need to get back to the hospital stat.
Stat.
Yes. Whatever we can't fit into this half hour, we will share on our Science Goes to the Movies Facebook page. And if you want to watch past episodes, check us out at www.cuny.tv under the Science tab, or download our app to keep up with everything related to Science Goes to the Movies all in one place.